You're standing in the King Soopers parking lot on Colfax when the rent renewal email lands. $211 more a month starting in October. You wait for your stomach to drop the way it used to. It doesn't. You close the app, load the groceries, drive home. Something changed and you haven't named it yet. Tonight, driving past a dealership on Federal with balloons taped to every windshield, you're about to find out what that something is. There are 8 quiet signs you're already ahead of most people financially, and almost none of them show up in a bank balance. Sign 1. Covering a real emergency without going into debt. It happens on a Thursday, merging onto I-25 when the temperature gauge climbs past red and steam rolls out from under the hood. Grant at the shop on Evans has kind eyes and bad news in the same sentence. Water pump, plus the belt it took out. $960. The version of you from 2 years ago would have gone quiet at that number, already calculating which bill could slide. That version flinches out of habit, but your hand doesn't shake handing over the card. You transfer it from savings, pick the car up by 5, drive home with a slightly smaller number in your account. No spiral, no 2 a.m. math. Boring. That's the point nobody tells you. Only 47% of Americans say they have the liquidity to cover a $1,000 emergency at all this year. And among people who keep an emergency fund, the median balance has fallen to around $5,000, half what it was a year earlier. You don't post the receipt. You fold it into the drawer next to last month's, already paid down without thinking twice. Sign 2. Never carrying a credit card balance. Tuesday 9:15 a.m. half listening in stand-up when your phone buzzes once. You already know what it is. Auto pay processed, balance paid in full, same as the 3rd of every month. 2 seats over, Devin isn't so lucky. Phone angled away, doing math nobody wants to do out loud. 6 months ago, it was a leather sectional, financed at 0% for 12 months. The window closes in November. He doesn't know yet what the rate resets to. You don't say anything because it would sound like bragging. On the drive home, you think about it anyway. Total U.S. credit card debt has climbed past $1.25 trillion this year, and the average balance per cardholder sits around $6,700 at an interest rate near 22%. That's not a couch. That's rent paid to a bank on money you already spent. You think about the version of you who financed a laptop at checkout because it felt free in the moment. You don't do that anymore. Not because you make more, but because you stop letting future you pay for past you's convenience. Devin's sectional is quietly costing him more than the sectional. Sign 3. Your savings account is actually earning something. Sunday laundry running 2 floors down and you click into the account you opened at 19, same bank your parents still use. Balance, $8,640. Interest earned last month, $2.73. Your sister Ren mentioned moving her savings somewhere online a few weeks back, basically free money for doing nothing. You nodded and changed the subject the way you do with advice that sounds like a chore. This Sunday, you actually look it up. 18 minutes, a routing number, a transfer marked pending. A month later, mid-scroll, a notification catches you off guard. Interest earned, $28.90 on the same exact money. The national average savings rate sits around 0.38% this year, while the strongest high-yield accounts pay close to 11 times that. Same FDIC insurance, same $8,640. Run it 5 years and the gap on $10,000 left untouched is close to $2,000 for filling out one form on a boring Sunday. There's no photo to take of a transfer confirmation. But you notice you're a little curious to check your accounts now, instead of dreading it. Sign 4, a credit score above the national average. The email lands Wednesday, subject line polite and cold. Your lease renews in 60 days. Rent's going up. Your coworker Talia went through worse in the spring, apartment hunting, and the leasing agent pulled her credit right there at the desk and visibly winced. She got a smaller unit further out with a bigger deposit. So instead of accepting your increase, you open the credit app you usually swipe past. This time you look. 748, higher than you assumed, and nobody ever told you where that stood against anyone else's. The national average FICO score has actually been sliding for the first time in over a decade, landing around 714, tied largely to resumed student loan reporting, catching people off guard. 740 is the real threshold, where lenders hand out their best rates instead of standard ones. You're 8 points over it. You call the leasing office, ask about flexibility. There isn't much. They knock $15 off. You hang up and open your brokerage app out of habit just to see the number sitting there. Sign 5. Net worth above the median for your age. It's almost midnight, and Reese just posted from a dealership floor, a new SUV, bow still on the hood. You lie there doing the math on what that lease probably runs, then stop because it isn't your business. You get up and actually add everything up in one place. Maybe for the first time ever. 401k through work, $16,850. Savings, $8,640. What's left on the car loan, the minus sign you almost forget, $9,200. A little in checking that isn't spoken for, $27,600. You sit with that number the way you sat with the credit score, not proud, more confused, because you spent the better part of a year assuming you were behind. Median net worth for someone under 35 right now sits around $39,000 per the latest Federal Reserve figures. You're not there yet. And for a second, that stings more than Reese's SUV did. But you remember where you stood a year ago, negative, mostly loan debt, no cushion at all. You've been closing that gap every quarter without noticing. Reese's caption never shows the lease payment underneath it. Sign 6, capturing your full employer 401k match. Wednesday morning, HR asks you to sit in on new hire orientation. You end up across from Milo, 22, fresh out of CU Boulder, filling out benefits paperwork with the specific blank stare of someone who's never thought about any of this. He gets to the retirement page and stops. "Do I actually need this right now?" he asks. You almost laugh at yourself 2 years ago asking the same question. Company matches 50 cents on the dollar up to 5%, you tell him, pointing at the line he's about to skip. Put in 5%. They add another 2.5%, free. He still looks unsure, the way people do when something sounds too simple to be real. It didn't feel real to you either. Not until a notification you almost swiped past turned out to be the company's contribution landing in your account. Small and routine, the kind of deposit that stopped registering as good news months ago. On your salary, that match alone works out to a little over $2,000 a year, showing up whether you remember it exists or not. Left alone for 25 years, that employer money by itself turns into something close to 6 figures from checking one box. He checks the box, sign 7, owning actual invested assets, not just cash or a screenshot Friday night at a brewery off Broadway. 3 beers into a reunion you didn't plan for, and Cass slides into the booth. Hadn't seen him since high school. Phone out before you've ordered, showing you a chart, some token he got into 2 months ago that was basically about to 10x before it wasn't. You don't bring up your own accounts. It would feel like showing off, and there's nothing dramatic to show. That's the point of what's sitting in your brokerage account, a broad index fund, the boring kind that owns a sliver of the whole market, contributed to automatically every 2 weeks. No chart worth screenshotting, just a number usually slightly bigger than last month. Most Americans technically own stock this year once retirement accounts get counted, but that splits hard by income and education, and the version most people your age see modeled online looks a lot more like Cass's chart than your automatic transfer. What keeps you up some nights isn't owning versus not owning. It's the years you almost lost waiting until you had more to start with. Sign 8. A raise that didn't raise your spending. Your manager calls you into the small conference room. Monday tells you the promotion went through. Associate to senior associate, $58,200 to $66,500. She watches your face, expecting a bigger reaction than the one you give. You say thank you, mean it, go back to your desk feeling something quieter than expected. That night you don't do anything about it. No dinner out, no apartments open on your phone. You log into your brokerage app and increase your automatic transfer by the exact amount of the raise before it touches checking. A few clicks done before dinner. Your coworker Naomi got a similar bump last spring and leased a car within the month. You don't say anything because you remember exactly what it felt like to want that kind of proof something had changed. You just don't reach for it yourself. You still drive the same car, still live in the same one-bedroom off Colfax. Median income has barely moved in real terms over the past 5 years, once you account for actual cost of living, and most raises get absorbed within months by a bigger apartment or a car payment that quietly grows to match the new number. Your life costs the same as it did in January. Your accounts don't. Lying in bed, you open Instagram out of habit. Reese posted again. The SUV, a trip somewhere warmer than Denver. You wait for the familiar drop in your chest. It doesn't come, not the way it used to. You look at the photo again and actually see it. A lease payment you'll never know the size of, sitting under a caption that only shows the parts worth showing. You were never behind her. You were comparing your quiet, boring accounts against her loudest month. 8 small decisions, none of them photographed. The rent still went up $211. The car still ticks past 88,000 miles. Nothing about your life announces what changed. Tomorrow the market's up or it isn't, and none of tonight's math fixes that. It just means you'll meet it from somewhere steadier than where you started.